Hi, welcome back. We are excited about today's episode. This is an episode that we love talking about, and it's really about normalizing mediumship because mediumship can impact every single day of your life. It can actually give you a guidepost to get through life. Because oftentimes, a lot of people will share, I feel really alone in this life. And you don't have to feel alone. You're actually supported by the spirit realm, whether you realize it or not.
Yeah, when I was in the public schools, I taught a class called Life Skills, and you were a teacher too, and that's part of why we have an education system. We're teaching people life skills,
Right.
skills they can use for their life, skills to make life easier. And over the years, I realized that's what mediumship is. It's just like intuition, it's just like communication skills, leadership skills. It just has this stigma that's out in the world right now that's changing as we speak, but it's still out there as something that's only some people do, or and
Yeah.
it's like,
Or
no,
it
I
goes
mean,
against religion. Like
religion,
there's
it's
different
like,
pieces
what
to
about
it.
with communication? Why there's no stigma to that? There's no, and that's all it is. It's communication. You're communicating with the other side. I can remember before I started to connect with past loved ones. It was when I first started, or when I was aware that I was doing it in the moment, was in 2010. It was the night after I spoke with you. We spoke on the phone. Some people know our story from past podcasts. And the next morning, I was in my shower and I had this energy come over me, and it nudged my head to look down, and all of a sudden I saw a perfect smiley face and heart shape in my shower, and I knew who it was right away. And then it connected. Looking back, I realized I had done that other times. I just didn't realize that that's what it was. And over these last 14 years, using it not only in my business, I'm a coach. So I
Right.
get to use it as a tool in my tool bag as a coach too. Sometimes people's
Definitely.
past loved ones will come through, and we're all helping each other move forward. And I get to use it in my everyday life. Like, I've had so many connections with family and friends that I never thought would be open to this. And we had connections together, not through me forcing it or wanting it to happen, which I did, but through just taking that pressure off, allowing it, and just allowing myself to grow with this gift. And then it naturally would just happen. And there's so many magical moments from it.
Oh, definitely. Like I'm thinking of, without getting into details, one particular little niece that we have, and she had a past loved one, very close to her pass. I think we can get into this, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, our niece, her
It's
mom
our
passed.
podcast. We can do whatever we want.
Exactly,
We're going to go to
exactly.
the principal's office.
I know. I just want to make sure that I'm like careful of
I know.
privacy.
I'm just kidding.
But yeah, our little niece, I mean, she lost her mom, and it is heartbreaking to even think about it, that she's in our family and she's not here physically anymore. But our niece is so in tuned with the things that have come through with her mom, and she's really noticing the signs as she gets older. And it's beautiful because she'll come to us and share, like, look at this happened to me, and she knows that her mother's around her. And it's just training your mind and your spirit to notice that they're always with us. They're always guiding us in different ways. And, with her permission, when we are around her, I'll ask her if I could share the story, maybe in another podcast episode. But there's been several instances where she knew that her mother was with her.
And she lights up when she tells us.
Yes. And I remember when she was very little, it was probably that first year that her mom passed, and we all got together, all the nieces, and we were connecting in with her mom, and I was leading them through a little meditation, and they were tuning into the loving presence of her mom. And it was so cute to see them like really communicate, like very in tuned with this beautiful presence of her mom, and knowing without a doubt that she was there. It was just like she was in the room with us, because she was. And I think that's a beautiful piece with children. They have no filter. They have no preconceived notions of like what is the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do, what's religious and what's not religious. So they don't put themselves in a box, and they're willing to learn. They genuinely are willing to learn. And that's what I've noticed over the years with her is she enjoys talking about it, and she brings it to our attention, even if we don't bring it up.
She does. And her mom loves it too. Her mom's in the room right now. nudging on my arm and my leg right now, and I feel her presence, and her mom loves it too.
Yeah, because
Spirit loves it.
she wanted to do this work before she passed. She wanted to learn about
She
more
was
about
so
it.
open to it. She's very intuitive herself.
Yeah.
And she thinks it's beautiful. She's telling me right now. She's told us all along. And of course, right? Of course, it's logic. It makes sense too.
Right.
It's like, of course, she wants to connect with her daughter. And it's so beautiful. And whether that you're a young kid like that or you're an adult, I've met some adults to where they still believe that if you pass away, like you're just in the dirt and you're gone forever. And it could be like that's a challenging vision to think about. Like I don't never think about that because I've been so connecting with past loved ones where it's like I know they're here just like I know you're here.
Yeah.
Right? And people listen and they can relate. Most of them, some maybe they can't relate.
And that's okay. And
that's okay.
I think that's the big thing that we've noticed over the years, that there's no point of pushing anything on anyone. You know, everyone has different beliefs, but if you're listening to this podcast, either you're intrigued by it or you already believe in it anyways. We're not here to convince, but we're here to share our own experiences. And if you're choosing to listen, that's your choice, but we're sharing everything that we can around this topic. And one thing that I will say is when you are opening up to the spirit realm, what can happen is your life gets nourished, but you're also a channel for other people's lives to get nourished. So I'm thinking about our niece, and there's times where her mom has shared stuff with us that she wanted us to do with her daughter. And we've taken the steps and did it because we're listening, you know? And I think that because someone can't be here physically in the same way, you know, with the physical eyes all the time like they used to be, they're going to go through people. Whether you know it's happening to you or not, you are influenced by the spirit realm. Sometimes it's so subtle where you think that it's your own idea that you've come up with. In actuality, it's them nudging you to call someone when they need the phone call. It's them nudging you to ask them to go out to, you know, an ice cream shop when the two of you used to go there. Like there's so many instances that we've been aware of because we've trained ourselves to recognize the signs and the messages and practice telepathic communication. And the best way that I would say, if you're new to this or you're trying to explore it with your own past loved ones or even other people's past loved ones, practice like you're practicing on a pet, a dog, a cat, even birds outside, lizards. We just started communicating. Well, Tony's been communicating with lizards, but
they've been my friends since 2011, since I moved to Florida.
Yeah. So it's like you're sending thoughts to them and you're seeing the reaction of what's coming back. Now, some people listening, if you're not open, you're going to be like, they sound crazy. And that's okay. I would have thought that like over 15 years ago or whatever amount of time before I got into this sort of thing. But there's a faith that gets built up in you, you know, when you're starting to communicate. And that faith comes from sharing your experiences in the moment when you're supposed to, and also getting validation from people that maybe had a past loved one come through and you don't know anything about them. And they're like, what you just said was exactly how they said it. So I think it's building up that confidence over time and practicing with it too.
Yeah, and it only comes like if you're practicing anything. Like say you're practicing to be a carpenter or to paint your house. Like it only comes through practice. And going back to what you said earlier too, when you're trying to force that on somebody, it's like forcing them to teach them how to do plumbing or paint. It's like it's not going to work there physically. Now we're dealing with the intangible realm. It's really not going to work if you're trying to force something. So it's very true. Like as you build your belief and your faith about it, there's an energy that shifts in you and people start to notice it.
Right.
And they start to connect it to who they believe you are. And that I've heard so many people over the years say, I didn't believe in mediumship or I wasn't open to it, but I believed in Lindsay. And I knew she was authentic. And I knew that if she's saying this, then there must be something to it. So it's a building block over time. It's like the first thing when you buy a new house, when you have a new gift, when you have something where you're connecting with the past loved one, what do you want to do first?
Oh yeah, you want to share it.
Share it with people that you love. So your first instinct is like, I'm gonna go jam this down everybody's throat, which I did. You know, I did it with the law of attraction. I did it with so many different things. Too. It doesn't work. We know that doesn't work. You know that doesn't work. Think about when you've done that. You don't like when people are trying to force things on you. You want it to be natural.
Yeah.
And it only becomes natural. It's like what Mavis said so many times with mediumship. You got to do the unnatural so it could become natural again.
Yeah.
Because it's really natural, but it becomes unnatural. You're a medium, you start charging, feels a little unnatural at first. People are giving you some paper, you get all in your fucking head about paper. Like, oh, they're giving me paper to, and we get all in our head, make up these stories until we see the truth again. We're like, oh, this is just natural. It's an exchange of energy. There's so many topics like that. You have to just see them differently. And the only way you're going to see them differently is through your experience. So we're suggesting to all of you, if you want to build this skill, you can open your heart right now, open your soul up right now, and feel who's around you. Like I just did. I was open. That's why I could feel Kylie earlier. And you just start to practice this. Like me, it'll be like they start to push on my arms. I'm a feeler, so I'll get energy. I'll feel the energy shift in the room. And I'm learning my cues. And they're usually tied to your personality.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like the senses that are really naturally strong. You are definitely a physical person.
I'm empath. I'm
you
a
feel
physical,
everything.
and that's how the mediumship comes to
and
me
for
too.
me, it was more visual. Like there would be, a drop of, a daydream in my head, and it was a quick image of someone's face. And then it would switch to something else, almost like I was daydreaming and I could see a memory in my head. That's how it started for me. And then I also had a mix of feeling, because I remember laying on my bed and training myself to feel if someone was around, and I would test it out and say, okay, if you're here, tap my foot. If you're here, do this. I didn't really connect it though right away. I think I started to understand it more over time, but you can fine tune your senses and figure out, okay, what is my wheelhouse for this?
Yes.
If you're naturally a good, if you're a feeler or you're a listener or your sense of smell is really strong, that's the type of thing that's going to show up with your mediumship. But you can change it over and practice each thing.
And sometimes you got to borrow somebody else's belief, right?
True.
You got to borrow someone else, and that's what mentorship is. That's what's getting around the right community. All of a sudden, like right now, some of you are listening to this podcast, and your belief is shifting because you could feel our belief about it.
Mm-hmm.
So you're around other people, and that's been what's really helped me. I've been around you since I've been developing this. So every little thing I could bring back to you and talk about, and you already had this belief about it, transform my belief. We see it every year in October in Unlock Your Inner Medium.
Yes.
Mentorship program, October through February or March. And
yeah.
I hear that over and over. Like, what's your number one takeaway from this at the end of the program? It's my confidence from being around a group of like-minded people. And what they're really saying is, like, I'm borrowing people's belief until I can have my own belief, right? So like it's leading me forward, and there's levels to it. Like 5 years ago, you and I, we had a certain belief level about mediumship. It's skyrocketed since then. 5 years from now, it's going to skyrocket from where it's at. So no matter what belief level you're on in mediumship, if you want to get to that next level, sometimes you want to borrow somebody's belief that is on that next level. And you got to humble yourself sometimes. Like, you know what? I got to be around that person, or I got to go to that community. And it up levels, it changes everything, because the opposite of that is what we've seen many people, and we've heard many people do, is like they're developing this gift and they'll be around a community a little bit, and then they go back around, like, we'll call it the average person that's not open to this or that doesn't want to talk about it. And you try to talk about it with them, or you try to share your experience, or maybe you try to give them a reading. It's going to kill your confidence. It's going to kill your belief. It's going to do the exact opposite, because you're borrowing from their belief now. So whoever it's like your dreams and all these are sacred. Whoever you open up to, like, their belief systems are going to get involved. And no matter how strong you think you are, it's going to affect your belief system.
Definitely. That's why I always tell my students, like, right away, when you're in a sensitive space of starting the mediumship journey on the program, you might not want to tell just everyone that what's happening, like these miracles that you've experienced. It's going to be feeling into who is safe to share with. Because just like us, when we go to these seminars, you want to share everything that you've learned. We go to our own seminars, but at the same time, sometimes it does take the sacredness away when you're trying to enjoy and, like, simmer in that beautiful moment. And then it comes a time where maybe it's 2 months down the road, you feel more confident and you're okay with sharing it and being okay with someone's reaction not being how you wanted it to be 2 months before. and other people, they might wait 5 months. Maybe people won't come on board, and that's okay. But this is your journey. And I think that's the big thing that we talk about, that is, if you feel the nudge or you feel intrigued with connecting in with the spirit realm, it doesn't have to be scary. It doesn't have to be like, this is the end all be all, and I have to say I'm doing this for a living. If someone comes to me and they're interested in mediumship and they talk about unlock your inner medium, one of the things they share with us is, well, I don't know if I'm ready for that level. I don't even know if I'm ready to start. The reason you take a class is to gain the confidence. You don't get the confidence first. You take the class and then you gain the confidence because you're putting in the time, energy, and money, but you wouldn't get it beforehand. So you're never going to prepare for a class. You just show up, and that's where the techniques are.
That's it. It's in the action. It's in being around like-minded people. It's like, if I'm going to ride a bike, I'm not going to prepare to ride a bike.
Yeah.
I'm going to fucking ride
You'll be
a
in
bike,
your head
and then I'm going to go
thinking about it.
All right, if I put my hand there and I put, okay, damn, I fell again. It's like, no, like, you go and do the thing. We all know this.
Yeah.
It's so common sense, but for whatever reason, we all forget to keep things simple when it comes to certain subjects. And we found that with this subject, it's very similar to that, where people think they need to prepare, they need to do all this, and it's like, you ask them, well, how many readings have you been doing while you're preparing? 0. It's like, how are you going to get better at something if you're not practicing it and getting the right clients too? That's why in Unlock Your Inner Medium, we're curating the ideal client for them. We're going to put sitters to where when they're given readings, they're going to be given readings of people who are open to it. So that's what a program does too, compared to outside of that. You might be trying to give readings to people who aren't open to it, and you're wondering why it's not flowing. It's like the best medium on the planet could go give a reading to someone who's all the way closed off and maybe pick up something, but if you watch it, it's not going to look effective. It's going to look like shit, because
if they're not ready for it. We're not
entertainers here. It's not like you're coming up here to juggle, like, all right, this is all you do it. And that's what people that aren't familiar with mediumship and all this and coaching, they think that it's just a one-sided thing. It's like, no, you got to bring that shit too. Like, if you're going to get a reading, you need to do the work to have your heart open, because our human mind, especially if you're new to it, will naturally start to close you off. So you got to be aware of that. Like, all right, now let me reopen. I know that, the resistance things happen. My body's rejecting this new idea, because that's what our internal programming does. It rejects any new ideas. So we got to consciously be present and have our hearts open if we're the sitter. So your sitter needs to be doing that. If someone doesn't understand this, they're not going to do that.
Right.
So get around the right people, the right community, with an ideal client, an ideal sitter, and you'll see your confidence skyrocket in 3 months, in 1 month, in 2 weeks, compared to it would have had to take you 10 years to where, even if you would have got to that point doing something else. And you don't want to waste your time. We only have so much time here. So if you want to do this as a skill, get around people that are doing it, just like you would if you're working out or with anything else that you're doing.
And if you're someone that's just thinking, well, how could it really improve my life? Literally, it could be you wake up in the morning and all of a sudden you hear your grandfather's, like, you could imagine him telling you, you got to make sure you get that oil changed, or you got to make sure you check this out. And you're like, wait, I don't need to get my oil changed. Then you get in your car and all of a sudden the light's on, or you bring it to the car shop and you find out there was something going on with it. So the next time you get an intuitive nudge, a dream, or just a feeling or an inner knowing, ask yourself, where is this coming from? And you can even say it out loud. Where is this coming from right now? And see if you see someone's face in your mind that's passed, or see if you get a name of someone that's passed that's telling you. A lot of the times they'll plant songs in our head where it's on repeat. It's not always our own mind having songs stuck in our head. That's not always what happens. I know with Tony, he'll start singing a song. I'm like, why did you just sing that? And Tony's like, oh, I was in a daydream. I don't even know what I was just doing. I'm like, that was connected to my past loved one, like, without a doubt. So a lot of the things that are happening to us from the spirit realm, we are on autopilot when it's coming in. We're kind of out of our mindset or our brain and allowing things to float in. Sometimes we just don't know where it's coming from. We think it's ourselves when really it's not.
And these are all the patterns that you must recognize and that you will recognize when you're around people that are doing this thing.
Yeah.
You'll hear them say it. in their concerns, that the different concerns and struggles you have around mediumship, that I have, that Lindsay, most likely everybody else has similar struggles on one extent or another, and their perspective will unlock something inside of you. And it'll, sometimes we think when we struggle, we we start to feel bad about that and think that we're not enough, or that we think that we're not supposed to be doing this. When we start to realize that no, this is just part of the patterns, part of the what happens here, now that energy goes away, and now we get the like, oh no, this is just nature. It's
Right.
kind of like we if it was snowing outside, we're like, oh, wait, that pattern's happening. It must be. Am I putting out negative vibes? It's like, no, the fucking seasons are here on Earth. You know what I mean? It's not. You didn't put out vibes. It's not why it's snowing. Seasons. It's
Yeah.
patterns, and when you recognize these patterns, you can use them.
Mm-hmm. There's so many pieces. And we're going to get into other episodes that really uncover a little bit more about mediumship, but we really want to hear from you. What experiences have come up for you that you've recognized, wow, I was in my daily life and I got a message and I knew this message was coming forward, or anything else that's come up around mediumship. The other thing we want to share too is Unlock Your Inner Medium is filling right now. So this happens once a year. It's a 5-month mentorship program. We start in October. If you want more information, go to lindsaymarino.com or just send a message, lindsay@lindsaymarino.com. We'll give you more information and see if it's a good fit for you. Okay, see you next time.